All right, we're still in our quick review here, but this time we're going to do multiplying. So some words that you should know. The word factor are numbers or letters, or numbers and letters that we multiply together. So for example, if I had the number 10, 2 of the factors of 10 would be 2 times 5, because those are 2 numbers that we multiply together to get 10. So again, numbers or factors are numbers that we multiply together to get something else. Or it could also be variables. So if we just kind of practice that, so if I look at number 1, identify the factors, we'll look for things that are being multiplied together. Well, what's being multiplied together? The 2 and the n. Remember in algebra, if there's no symbol in between there, it means multiplication. Knowing that, what are the factors? What's being multiplied together here? Well, A and B are being multiplied together. There are a few ways that we denote multiplication. One would just be no symbol at all. So I'm just going to kind of use some scrap up here. So like, for example, 12 and x. That means 12 times x. Those are being multiplied together. Another way we denote multiplication is by putting one of them in parentheses. That means 12 times x as well. Putting a dot in between there, that's another way of saying that those two things are going to be multiplied. The one thing that we do not do for multiplication is in algebra is we don't use an x like you do in elementary school, because of course x can be looked at as either multiplication or the variable x. So that's why we do not use an x for multiplication. This is the one we're going to want to do the most often though. So product is the word that means multiplication. So it's the answer to a multiplication problem. So if I want the product of x and y, it just means that I want to take x and y and multiply them together. That's all they're looking for. If I want twice a number, well, twice means that we're going to multiply by 2 specifically. So twice a number would be 2 times a number. I'm going to use n, or 2 times n. So now let's go back to our properties. Commutative property does hold for multiplication. It doesn't matter what order you multiply 2 numbers in. So for example, 5 times 3 is exactly the same as 3 times 5. Hopefully you see that. The associative property also holds for multiplication. See, just like with addition. See how here we've grouped the x and the y together. Here we've grouped the y and the z together. That doesn't matter. Notice nothing has changed order going from left to right, because that would be commutative property. This is a multiplication property of 0. It says if I take anything, absolutely anything, and if I multiply it by 0, I'm always going to get 0. This is the identity property of 1. If I take anything, and if I multiply it by 1, I get the same thing back. 12. Multiply it by 1, I get 12. A. Multiply it by 1, I get A. So in other words, multiplying by 1 doesn't change its identity. The identity stays exactly the same. So let's go ahead and let's do some multiplication. So again, order doesn't matter, or how I group these doesn't matter, because it's multiplication. So for example, I'm going to look, you know what? I'm going to group those 2 things together. So now I'm just going to change the order. So I'm going to do 6 times 3 times 5 times 2. So I just put the 6 and the 3 together. So now I'm just going to group them, and I'm going to multiply the 6 times the 3 first to get 18 times, what's 5 times 2? 10. I grouped the 5 and the 2 together because it's really easy to multiply anything by 10. You simply add a 0. Now, could I have done 6 times 5? That's 30. 30 times 2 is 60, and 60 times 3 is 180. Could I have just done that? Absolutely. You're going to get the same answer. We can do the same thing here. Now, notice it doesn't say we have to use any of our properties, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put all the numbers in a row. So I just flipped the X and the 7. And now I'm going to go ahead and multiply these 3 numbers together. Well, let's see. I'm just going to multiply those together first. So that's 15. And then 15 times 7. Well, let's review multiplication. If I want to do 15 times 7. So 7 times 5 is 35. Carry my 3. 7 times 1 is 7. Add the 3, and you get 10. So it's going to be 105. Don't forget your X. Okay, let's do a little bit more review with that multiplication here. We're going to kind of do these out of order. I'm going to do this one first. We'll come back to A. Don't worry. There's a little shortcut I want to show you there. So if I'm going to take 631 and multiply it by 28. All right, so let's review this multiplication thing. I start down here with the 8, and I'm going to multiply each one of these numbers by the 8, just like this. So 8 times 1 is 8. There's no carrying to do there. 8 times 3 is 24. I'm going to put down my 4 and carry my 2. 8 times 6 is 48. Add the 2, you get 50. So all I did was I basically multiplied 631 by 8. I'm done with this 8. I'm not going to use it anymore. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the 2. Now, just know that when you do that, you're going to need a 0 placeholder right there. And now you're going to start your multiplication. 2 times 1 is 2, no carrying involved. 2 times 3 is 6, no carrying. 2 times 6, now remember this 2 is from before. 2 times 6 is 12. Now notice how I'm lining up all my numbers. Now what I do is I add these 2 numbers. So 8 plus 0 is 8. 4 plus 2 is 6. 0 plus 6 is 6. 5 plus 2 is 7. And 0 plus 1 is 1. So my answer is 17,668. It's going to take some practice if it's been a while. All right, this is going to be longer, so here we go. We're going to take 1, 3, 5, 4, and then we're going to multiply it by 206. I'm going to need more room here. So I'm going to start with the 6, and all of these are going to be multiplied. So here we go. 6 times 4 is 24. Carry my 2. 6 times 5 is 30, plus 2 is 32. Carry my 3. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 3 is 21. Carry my 2. 6 times 1 is 6, plus those 2 are 8. Okay, so now I like to, when I go on to my next number, I usually like to erase these because sometimes I forget and I get confused. Okay, so now I go to this 0. Well, I need this 0 placeholder, just like I had to have up there. So now I go to the 0 and I multiply each one of these by 0. Well, 0 times 4 is 0. 0 times 5 is 0. 0 times 3 is 0. And 0 times 1 is 0. Now I still have this 2. So what do I have to do before I multiply each of these by 2? In the next row, I need 2 placeholders. Here you don't need any. In this next row, you need just 1 placeholder. Here you need 2. And of course, if you had another digit, To multiply, you would need 3 placeholders. All right, so here we go. Now we're dealing with the 2. So 2 times 4 is 8, no carrying. 2 times 5 is 10, carry a 1. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And 2 times 1 is 2. And now I'm going to add these numbers together. So if I go down the columns, that's going to give me 4, 2, 9, 8, 7, and 2. And the answer is 278,924. All right, we have a couple of story problems here, but again, don't panic. These aren't like full-blown story problems. You should be able to read them and use some logic. So Mary works 3 hours a day for 7 days straight on a project for school. How many hours did Mary spend on the project? Well, how would I get my total number of hours? What would I do with the 3 and the 7? Well, she worked 3 hours a day for 7 days. So you would multiply those together, which means she worked a total of 21 hours. Always make sure you label your answer in a story problem. So I hope that made sense to you. Last one here. So you have an office that has 5 filing cabinets. Hopefully you can picture a filing cabinet. Each filing cabinet has 6 drawers. How many drawers are there total for the files? So we have 5 cabinets, and each one of them has 6 drawers. So to find the total number of drawers, we would simply multiply 5 times 6. And we get 30 drawers. And there we go.